So we're here at BC in Austin, Texas. I'm here with Steve. We're talking about latest developments at the NIA. So Steve, there was an NIA board meeting this week, bringing together a lot of the big names from the industry.
Yeah.
So what were the big discussion points, particularly from the operators and on the NIA board?
Well, it was a great meeting. We had a lot of the operators there. Actually, we had AT&T and BT in the meeting. And it was very interesting to see that there has been a significant change in the attitude of operators to NFV. And I'm paraphrasing, but essentially what the major operators were saying was, this has taken too long. It's really complicated, and building complicated infrastructure isn't our job. Our job is to deliver services. And we're just going to focus on that, and we're going to let you, the rest of the industry, in particular the incumbent telecom vendors, work this out amongst yourself. And we think that at the rate you're going, that's going to take you years. But in the meantime, we need to deliver services. And BT was fascinating on this subject. Neil McRae stepped up to the mic and said, you know, what we've done is we've defined common standardized service models for how to deploy native services, not just containerized legacy services, but new services, cloud native, over a network in a way which saves you money and is profitable. They've done that for 36 different services, and some of those services are sort of layer 2, layer 3 services like DSL or IP or virtual packet core, but some of them are actually applications, like firewalls and things like that. And then, and this was such a pivot in the conversation, Neil said, hey, guess what? You know what, we've done this, and if other service providers see some value from it, if it's helpful to you guys to actually take on these models, help yourself. So what the NIA is going to do is we're going to build a cloud resident repository of all of these common models, not just the 36 from BT, but from the hundreds which are also being developed by other service providers, and we're going to make them available for download.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which I think is going to be a huge step forward for the industry. I'll tell you one other thing though. On the same subject, what emerged at this meeting was that some companies might call this a standardized service model. Another company might call it a standardized data model. And I asked why that is, and it transpires that after 4 years of working on NFV,
calling things different, same
we
thing
haven't
by
even
different
defined
names.
a taxonomy.
Right.
It's like building a car, but one person is calling the steering wheel the large control unit. I mean, it's we haven't even got the same language.
Put it in the trunk. You mean the boot?
Yeah, exactly. The bonnet, the hood. I mean, it is actually farcical. So not only do we have 7,000 dueling specifications coming out of open source or these industry consortia, everybody with a personal and a company agenda, we're not even speaking the same language.
Right.
So NIA is commissioning heavy reading to produce a taxonomy, a lexicon, if you will, of the language of virtualization. We're going to agree what these terms should be. We're going to put them in front of a peer review, which I hope will include BT and AT&T. It will definitely include companies like Massagey, Accenture, Cisco, Huawei, ZTE. We're going to agree as an industry what we're actually going to call this stuff, and then we're going to use that to define this online repository of service models. And by doing that, I think we're going to move the industry forward in a huge way.
Really pragmatic move, and I know Neil McRae is a real pragmatic guy at BT, and so that's a good thing he's kickstarted.
Yeah, and he was just really, he said, we're now focused on the end result. We're not at the beginning. We're looking at what this was supposed to deliver, and we're focused on delivering that, and that's what we're going to do. And I thought that was really refreshing, and there were lots of nodding heads from the rest of the board of directors members and real agreement. So we've been given that mission, actually 2 missions, the taxonomy and the repository, and that was very exciting.
Alrighty. And then still, a long time sort of focus of the NIA has been to testing and programs around interoperability, and that's still an ongoing thing for the NIA?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what happened with the interoperability stuff. A couple of years ago, I started talking about the big problem, which is not east-west interoperability between NFVI from, say, Cisco and Huawei. Nobody really cares about that. The interoperability, which is essential, is getting onboarding the VNFs, the services and applications, onto the NFVI from different vendors. And right now, there's no standard way to do that. In fact, there are, just I guess there's dozens of ways that you could potentially do that. So when I originally went out to the industry and talked in particular to the open source people about this and said, well, we need to standardize this so that we know what will run on what, they all said, well, you can't do that, there's so many things, you'll offend Bob, or then we've got to say, we've got a group over here, we've got a flag, and it was like absolutely farcical. So what we've decided to do is pick one, and we're going to create a certification around it, and we're going to base our certification around OpenStack. So what's going to happen is we're going to get in the lab all of the NFVI infrastructure, because we have 100% support from the NFVI vendors, from Cisco, Ericsson, Huawei, all of those guys. We're going to be in a lab, and then the VNF vendors are going to roll in, and eventually this will be done through uploading these applications through the cloud. It'll be of a piece with virtualization. We're going to run them across all of the NFVIs, and the standard or the specification which they need to be compliant to for that is OpenStack.
Right.
So they'll have to implement the sort of the heat part of OpenStack, and then if they work, they'll be certified, and then in the next year they have to come back to be recertified. And of course, just interoperability is the starting point. We're also at some point, maybe quite soon, look at things like performance and reliability and security and things like that. Now,
all those carrier grade things that the carriers need.
But I can already hear the open source community going, but we've got this and we've got. We are going to pick one thing. We're going to show people that if you buy that and you run it on that, it's going to work, and here's the piece of paper to prove it. And what I think is going to happen is these carriers that were at the BOD, at the NIA BOD, I think they're going to embrace this. I think they're going to put it as a condition of being in the RFP. Ultimately, they may not even use that particular interoperability, but they know that that VNF organization and that those NFVI companies are playing in the right mindset, that they're actually keen to get things to work together, and it'll provide a baseline, it'll become a de facto industry standard. And we have to start somewhere. What we can't do is have another 4 years of industry consortia, and everybody, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a specification. As an industry, we have to have some consensus, we have to have vigor, we have to have discipline, and we have to move forward at this point. So I thought this was wildly positive. So we have 3 missions at NIA: interoperability, which will be based around OpenStack, defining a taxonomy so we're speaking the same language, and putting these service models available for all to use in a repository. So I feel excited about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to really kickstart a lot of activity and no doubt debate as well in the industry, but it's the action that's important.
Yes, it is. We're moving forward.
Excellent.
Progress every day.
Excellent.
Cheers,
all right,
Ray.
Great, Steve.
Thanks
a lot.